Today on the Extreme Channel, we're reviewing this giant Lobo statue. And if you're unfamiliar with who Lobo is, he is one of the craziest comic characters ever made. How badass is he? His name literally means, he that devours your entrails then enjoys it. And that's just the beginning of this guy. Hey guys, welcome to the Extreme Channel. We are reviewing one of my most anticipated statues of 2021. This giant, monstrous $1,500 statue from Prime 1 Studios is a 1/3 scale, meaning a 3 times smaller version of the comic character Lobo. As I said in the intro, Lobo is from DC Comics, and he's one of the most badass characters ever created. See, he made the turntable start going the other way. If you're unfamiliar with who Lobo is, he has a few different origins. However, his main origin is he was born on a planet of mostly peaceful people. However, he was not peaceful. When he came out of the womb, he actually bit the nurse's fingers off and then tried to murder the doctors with scalpels. His murderous rampage continued, and by the age of 16, he actually killed half of the planet that he was on because he was bored. By the age of 17, he killed them all. Then he decided to use his talents to good use. He actually became a bounty hunter for hire. And the only reason he became a bounty hunter is he wanted money to feed his space dolphins. Yes, he has space dolphins, and they're pretty much the only thing in the world that he loves. And Lobo is one of the most powerful beings out there. He actually goes toe-to-toe with Superman all the time. He pretty much equals Superman, or some people may argue, beats Superman in strength. He can't be killed because he can regenerate like Deadpool. And even if he did die, he's actually banned from both heaven and hell, so they would actually send him back. He can actually smell out his prey from galaxies or solar systems away. He travels through space on a space bike, so he doesn't need to breathe oxygen. He has a magical pouch where it has unlimited weapons in it. And I don't think I need to tell you anymore, because the point is, he can't die, and if he's coming for you, you better pray to God. But today we're going to do an in-depth review of this awesome, amazing statue. And this piece, there's a little bit of controversy. So today we're going to find out if it came out as good as the prototype. So first thing we're going to look at with this piece is concept. And I can tell you right now, the concept is awesome. Now, a few different things. They made 3 versions of this statue. One is the regular version. The next step up is the exclusive. That's what this is. And the last is the deluxe. The reason why I bring that up is depending on which version you have and which display options you have, may slightly vary the concept. But on the bottom, you have this giant base. And what they've done with this base is while his motorcycle or his space hog isn't here, they've incorporated it into the base. Kind of a conceptual thing so that you can still see his motorcycle, which is a classic part of Lobo, which I love because they don't take up the room of the actual motorcycle. And also on that base, you have a lot of other crazy stuff. Some pipes, some canisters, some canteens, some skulls. But more importantly, you have his dog, aptly named Dog. That's AWG, not DOG. So Dog is a space alien dog. He's a little bit different. Lobo in his classic costume, a little bit of a variant to this because this is actually based off of a video game with tons of armor and weapons, and his classic biker outfit. He is ready to fight. Like I said, tons of different switch out options, but they're all ready for him to brawl with someone. And he looks badass. He looks confident because, of course, if you had his powers, wouldn't you be confident as hell too? He's lurching forward, so it's still a museum style pose, but a little bit of action dynamic to the statue. And it is great. I absolutely love the concept of this. It's one of the things that initially drew me in. I've never been the biggest Lobo fan, although I do respect him. And like I said, I always acknowledge he's one of the most badass characters out there. And I think this statue really represents that and brings this to life like crazy. It makes him even more badass. So concept's clearly a 5 out of 5 on the extreme scale. Now design, there's a lot of stuff I love about this, and one thing I absolutely hate. It's just too big.
Hey, that's what she said.
So first, let's look at the unboxing and assembly of this piece. Now, it came in 2 very large boxes, which arrived 3 days apart, because why in the world would they arrive on the same day when they were shipped on the same day? But your standard Prime 1 Studios white foam, and it did have an art box like they always do. Essentially, it was a picture of the statue. Now the first box actually had 2 layers. The first layer had a ton of pieces, a lot more than I thought there would be. And the base. Now this is the box that arrived the first day, so I got the base and all the accessories, but I was missing Lobo himself. That includes in this box right here, which just had 1 layer, had the body, the arms, and the portrait, and of course, Dog. Now you have a ton of display options. So let's look at those. The first I'm not really going to show you, but as you saw me wrap up the chain is optional. It doesn't need to clip to the little scythe right here, but I think it adds to the biker badassery of Lobo. And on a side note, this review is probably going to be a record for the number of times I say badass. So let's also look at his badass switch outs. You have two badass portraits. The first one, he has this evil Mr. Sinister badass smile. This really reminds me of Mr. Sinister, obviously from another universe, but maybe it's the skin tone and the hair, but I love it. The other badass portrait right here was actually him biting his lips so that he bleeds. Now initially I didn't think I'd like this, but I like it quite a bit, and we'll look at these closer during paint and sculpt. On his left arm, he has two different arm displays, one where it actually hangs down low. Now on that, you can hold his cigar. This is meant to be this way, and the reason why I say that, in a second I'm going to show you a way you can display it that it's not meant to be, but also hanging low is an older style double barrel shotgun. Badass, isn't it? Or his arm can be holding up, and with this, you're supposed to put this other badass gun right here, where it's kind of facing the ceiling. Now the reason I don't have this displayed during the review is because it's just too tall. But the other switch outs will also fit in here. I don't think they're meant to, but they don't look the best either. So right here is his badass cigar hand, and then his badass double barrel shotgun. Now, as I said, this is the exclusive version. The ultimate version also comes with his space dolphins right here, but I think it was about $400 more, $300 or $400 more for this. Now, if you order directly from Prime 1 Studios, they also had this switch out handgun. So let's measure this beast. First, the height, and I don't think it's too tall. It's supposed to be right around 31 inches or so. He's about 31 inches. With the gun, Prime 1 Studios website says it goes up to 39 inches. The deepest point, which is the part I really don't like, you're probably over 28 inches deep. That's a huge display problem issue. And the widest point is about 26, 27 inches. Now the fact that he's lurching forward looks cool, but to me it's not worth that big of a display space. Very few cabinets are that deep. And I'm worried he's actually not going to fit where I want him to. So I think that's a huge negative. They could have had him do a museum pose, got rid of a ton of the crap on the bottom, and made the display either 75% or even 50% as deep. Magnets are extremely strong. Everything fits well. There are two pieces of mixed media we'll look at during paint and sculpt that I think they're worthless. But honestly, I think the space on this just kills it. Anytime something is deeper than 24 inches, you're going to have an incredibly difficult time finding any display that will actually house it. So I think that was a huge mistake. And for that one reason alone, it knocks the design score to 3 out of 5. I mean, just look at this. Half this crap we don't even need back here. All right, paint and sculpt. Now, I know initially when this was presented as the prototype, everyone loved it. I was super excited about it. It's done by one of the best sculptors in the world. And then a few initial pictures came out, and lighting plays a big role. So we're going to check out right now, did they execute on the paint and sculpt? So much to cover on this guy. We'll first look at what's on him right now, and then we'll look at some of the switch outs. So as I said, a lot going on the base, so much so that it's almost impossible to break it down into a review of the specifics on the paint and sculpt. From this looks like a giant, the giant water canteen to the piping. Now I'm not sure why they went crazy like this. I do, as I said, like the fact it doesn't waste the space. At least there's something to look at. But so I would almost call this a sub base down here. But it's part of the statue, so a metallic structure. You can see some browns and coppers in there. Kind of that dented up texture. It looks fine. It flows well with the pipes that are, to the booster, like we talked about, I assume either to his ship. So conceptually, it looks pretty cool. And it's a variant in the colors, a lot of gray and black in this statue, as you'll see. And that includes on the concrete here that's busted up. There's some layering and some black and gray, and then a few brown where the skulls are. I think that looks good. Skulls are about human size, I believe, 4 1/3 scale. And then the other electronic components, like the head of his bike here, pretty badass how they incorporated that. This stuff is kind of what has me shrugging back here. I'm not sure why they put it on here, but it looks decent, it looks good, really old, rusted, really flows with kind of the attitude that the statue gives, I think. So a lot of detail and stuff that I didn't necessarily think there needed to be, like this gas canister right here. And then the colors really tell a good story and blend together. You see the top of the green, then almost some green in here as it blends back into the brown and gray colors of the base. Little copper pipe sticking out there, no idea why, but the mutt, let's check him out. I love him. As I said, I think he's a great addition. The sculpted fur looks great. There's some a little bit of blue in with that black and white. The short hair looks phenomenal, and the bone structure on him really pops. Then his paws, almost some enamel on his nails. He has a few blue spots on his face, and just that evil look with the redded out eyes. The pink in between the flopped ears looks great. Then his collar, a lot of reminiscent of the base, and then what you're gonna see on Lobo. Then his wet nose and mouth with the teeth sticking out. If I had a dog, I would want a dog like this. Now Lobo, there's so much going on here, so we'll try and cover it. But essentially what you see is he has his biker uniform, and then layered armor and spikes on certain parts of that, with tons of accessories from the belts to the pouches to the straps to the guns. So I like how his knee pads are actual skulls with stars in them. And again, there's a mix of gray and blue, and then obviously the stars with the red there. Very Lobo-like. And then these shin guards down here, kind of a metallic armor that's offset and old, so you can tell he gets a lot of wear. The spikes coming out of the boots here. But it is good. It looks like material, looks like it's fabric and it's sculpted. This mixed media right here we briefly talked about. I think I'm gonna take it off. I'm not a fan of it at all. It's very thin. I know it's meant to be worn. Now right here, these straps look great. I think they do a good job on his chaps, the biker pants right behind it that have that texture. There's a lot of good detail right here. And that can be said with the pouches up here. Prime One Studios always does a great job with pouches on 1/3 scale pieces. He has his belt buckle, which is the traditional skull. You can see his pants and some folds and creases underneath. They're more of a brown. They're showing up with a little bit of green highlight in the camera here. And then where his chaps are stitched up right here, kind of cool. He has his belt with his knife and handgun down here. The more weapons, the better. Kind of, like we talked about, he has that unlimited bag. And those straps look great. I like the weathering on them, so it looks like real leather. He has some down here as well. As we talked about, his jacket, awesome. Bite me, Panboy. He loves to hurl insults. Not the greatest leather I've seen, but it does look very good. I've seen some more brown leather jackets that look like true leather. This is, don't get me wrong, it's probably 9 out of 10. It's just not quite 10 out of 10. The shame of it, as we said, is on the back. Check out his gauntlets on his arms. Again, more metallic armor with the spikes. Not sure why he needs so much armor because of his regenerative ability, but his biker gloves, more spikes on that. We'll look at the switch outs in a second. So this little scythe right here, it isn't metal. It flows well, but you can definitely tell it's a sculpted resin or plastic. And the chains, I wouldn't want real chains for the weight, as we talked about, but they still look good. I think the shine is appropriate. Here's the front of his jacket. His zipper looks great. Some ammo that might actually be some grenades on his chest with his cross hanging around his neck. More spikes coming out of the side with the frayed leather jacket. It's stitched up a few places, so definitely seen some wear in better days. Now his skin texture, very rock-like, so kind of reminds me of Darkseid a little bit, honestly. I don't know if that's supposed to be hair or just a very, I assume it's supposed to be hair, but it almost looks kind of like an elephant type rough exterior skin. Either way, I like it. The anatomy is fantastic. Pretty sure Ramel sculpted this, and he's amazing. So there's so much going on. Really quick, let's look at his, we didn't look at his fingernails, but his hands look great. Again, that same skin texture and wear we're talking about with kind of a golden brown fingernail. I love the double barrel hair, very old with the shells underneath. I quite like the other gun too. Has Martyr Maker, Pray Hard, Die Fast, Don't Cross Me. Very Lobo reminiscence, and this is maybe how many people it killed. But good weathering on this. My favorite, as I talked about, is honestly the cigar, which I would really rather have him have a weapon, but this is no special effects. It looks like it's lit up. The paint, just fantastic job on the paint of the cigar. Then his portraits. So here is the one where he's biting his lip. Difficult to hold with one hand. But so the hair looks good. It's not my favorite part. It does look a little fake, but I think it's a good thing that it wasn't fully sculpted. Like I said, it's kind of a pliable material where the locks are and you can see where they connect. So that's okay. So, the skin isn't as rough up here, but I like how you can see some veins in there. He has the classic whited out or redded out eyes, and they almost have this little gloss or shine to them. And his teeth, phenomenal paint job on his teeth. You know, initially I didn't think I'd like this portrait as much as I do, but I like how he's biting his lip and the blood's kind of pooling up. So we'll definitely be switching out between the portraits because quite enjoy this one too, the evil, sinister sneer. A lot of the same comments. The hair is kind of a different flow, more of the biker classic Lobo. I like that. And then his beard is not quite as full, or maybe it is. A little hard to tell, but definitely not disappointed. All right, so let's start with the paint. Like I said, a lot of really cool things, especially the details around the dog's portrait, his paws. I think the portrait, the paint's very good. A few areas that weren't quite as clean as I'd hoped they'd be, but I think it's still a 4 out of 5 on the paint. There's so much going on here, and I think they did a nice job not only with the actual paint execution, but with some of the paint art direction as well. Sculpt. I am very, very happy with this sculpt. It's not as good as I hoped it would be, but I thought this would be one of the best sculpts in my collection. Now, I definitely think it's in the top 10%. But when you have hundreds of statues, there's kind of a big scale. So I don't think the sculpt's a 5 out of 5, but it's a strong 4 out of 5 for sure, maybe almost a 5 out of 5. And honestly, I think the reason for that, it's almost just too much going on. I think that kind of detracts from some of the stuff. All right, so they made 850 of these, or right around there, I believe. They made a couple hundred of each, the regular, the exclusive, and then the ultimate version. But that's still a pretty low edition size. Under 1,000, I think, is definitely a plus. Now this piece right here, the exclusive, was $15.99. The regular, which didn't have some of the arm switch outs, was $14.99. And to get the dolphins, it was actually $18.99. And I think you can buy the dolphins separately. I may be wrong on that. Traditional price on a 1/3 scale statue, at least a few years ago, was $8.99 or $9.99. So there's a lot more going on here, so I can definitely see the price tag around $12.99 or so. But with the giant base and Lobo not being a super popular character, now despite the fact that this is kick-ass, I don't think you have a huge audience for this like you would a Batman or a Superman. And with how difficult it is to display and the giant boxes, I think the value on this is a 3 out of 5, unfortunately. Now don't get me wrong, I don't plan to sell this. This will be in my collection as long as I have 1/3 scale pieces. So does this have the X factor? If you're new to the channel, this is not a final or cumulative score, but is this statue badass? When you look at it, do you look at it and say, my God, I love that statue? I think it's 5 out of 5. And I do say that with this statue. My God, this badass statue is a 5 out of 5 statue. I absolutely love it. I love it so much, I'm actually drooling a little bit right now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Did Prime 1 deliver? Is it still awesome, even though it's not as awesome as the prototype? Put that in the comments below, because we've got some big giveaways coming. Punch that picture of me to subscribe to the channel. Drop me a like on your way out, and watch this next video from Prime 1 Studios. Really appreciate you watching. And yes, I did stutter when I said so.